Hey guys, we have made it to the end of our week, and we are going to take the things that we've learned this week about writing expressions and evaluating those expressions and put those together to solve some problems. Here are the steps that we're going to take. First, we're going to identify a variable and define what it stands for. Then we're going to figure out what operations we need to be using to solve the problem. And then we're going to write out an expression that we can use to solve the problem. And then finally, we'll be given a value to be able to substitute in for the variable so that we can evaluate an expression. All right, let's look at our first problem here. It says Ben has 4 more marbles than Jack does. Write an expression for how many marbles Ben has. Well, there is no variable here, but our first step says identify the variable and define what it stands for. Well, I know that to figure out how many marbles Ben has, I'm going to need to know Jack's number of marbles. So I'm going to start with Jack, and I'm going to call my variable J, and I'm going to label my variable the number of marbles that Jack has, because in order to figure out how many marbles Ben has, I'm going to have to know Jack's marbles and then add 4. So my operation then, my second step, more, is going to be plus or addition. So I know that for step 1, J is going to be the number of marbles that Jack has. I'm going to have to add in something to figure out Ben's marbles. And so you probably are way ahead of me already and know that my expression then is going to be J plus 4, the number of marbles that Jack has, plus 4 more to find out how many Ben has. Now down in the next part, they give us some information. They say, well, if Jack has 15 marbles, how many marbles does Ben have? So what we're going to do is write our expression, and then we're going to take the 15 that they give us right here and replace or substitute our J variable with 15, and then add those together to find out that if Jack had 15 marbles, then Ben would have 19 marbles. Okay, next situation. Aaliyah gained $5 from her mom, probably thinking gained is going to be addition, right? For allowance, and earned $10 babysitting. She then went to the store and spent X dollars on a couple of pops. Write an expression for the amount of money Aaliyah has left. So step number 1 is to identify and define our variable. Well, the variable is here for us. It says X, and it tells us that X is the dollars spent on pop. And then what operations are we going to have to do? Number 2 tells us asks us what operations we'll have to do. Well, gained would be adding 5. Earned would be adding 10. But spending would be subtracting. So we've got X is the dollar spent on pop. We'll have to do some addition first to find out how much she gained altogether, gained and earned, and then we'll subtract what she spent on the pop. So we'll do our $5 plus our $10, and then we'll subtract our X dollars. And so our expression is 5 plus 10 minus X. Then the next part of our problem tells us that Aaliyah spent $7 at the store, so how much money does she have left? So we'll take that expression, 5 plus 10 minus X, we'll substitute the 7 in for the X, we'll add the 5 and the 10 first because that's what we do according to order of operations, which gives us 15, and then 15 minus 7 would give us 8, so she would have $8 left. Here's our next situation. Jonah got a job at Zesto's making $8 per hour. He worked 8 hours this week. Write an expression for how much Jonah earned. So step number 1, identify and define the variable. The variable is H, and it tells us it's the dollars that Jonah makes per hour. Okay, and then we need our operations, right? Well, we should remember that this per, whenever you see that word per, that's going to be multiplication. So H is the dollars Jonah makes per hour. Our problem is going to be a multiplication problem. And step number 3 is to write our expression. So we see from our problem that he works 8 hours this week. For every hour he works, we're going to take that money that he makes. So this will be 8 times H will tell us how much he made for that week. So we go down here and we see that the problem tells us that Jonah earned 12. If he earned $12 per hour, how much will he get paid for the 8 hours that he worked? Well, we take our expression, we substitute in 12 for the H, and then we do our multiplication, and we find out that he made $96 that week. Okay, let's look at one last problem here before we move on to the SWIC to see how you're doing on this. So Nevaeh and Lila want to attend a local amusement park. It costs $10 to get into the amusement park, and $3 per ride. The girls plan to go on Y rides. Write an expression for how much each girl will pay. So the first step is to identify and define the variable. If we look at the problem, we see that the variable is Y, and it tells us that Y is the number of rides the girls plan to go on. So Y is our number of rides that the girls go on. All right, then we've got to figure out what operations we have to use to figure this out. So it says it costs $10 to get in. So we're going to have to add in the $10 because that's how much we have to pay. But then it tells us that we do $3 per ride. And whenever we see that word per, we're going to remember that that's a multiplication problem. So we'll be adding and we'll be multiplying. Now you might be saying to yourself, wait a minute, if something is costing me something, then that would be a subtraction problem. But remember, we're trying to figure out how much we're going to have to pay altogether. So $10 is part of what we pay. We have to add that into what we're going to pay. All right, so first we're going to do some addition and some multiplication. Now step number 3 is where we have to write our expression. How are we going to figure out how much the girls have to pay? So we know they have to pay the $10. And then we're going to add that to $3 per ride, and the Y is the rides, right? So it'll be the initial $10 to get in, plus for every ride that they ride, they will have to multiply that by 3 because it's going to cost them $3 for each ride. So our expression is 10 plus 3Y. Okay, here we go. Let's finish this off. So we've got 10 plus 3Y. We substitute 15 in for the Y. We, according to order of operations, do the 3 times 15 first, which is 45, and then add in our 10, and we see that it costs the girls $55 to go to the amusement park. All right, head on to your SWIC now.